So, this story's kind of depressing. We're talking about Wizards of the Coast's new tabletop, the baffling state it was released in, the crazy launch, and the fallout, which has culminated in 90% of the development team being fired. I'm not going to pull any punches. Sigil is literally unplayable. It is worse than you think, and we'll get to that. That said, we're going to review it honestly and celebrate any areas of potential it might have had before WotC decimated the team. So, Sigil is a VTT created by Wizards of the Coast, which uses Unreal Engine 5 and was announced in 2022. It's out now. This is it. First things first, I am not joking when I say Sigil is literally unplayable. It does not work on OS X, Linux, or Chrome OS operating systems. That means if anyone in your party uses an Apple Mac, your group cannot use Sigil. If anyone in the future switches to an Apple Mac, the game is over. But even if your entire group uses Windows PCs, Sigil is still unplayable. The hardware requirements to run this piece of software are insane. The recommended specs include an RTX 2080 graphics card. This virtual tabletop is harder to run than Baldur's Gate 3, God of War Ragnarok, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Elden Ring, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Hack Tactics, awesome content creator, couldn't even open this software to review it. That's an influencer with over 100,000 subs who can't even engage with a D&D product. Compatibility is everything for a VTT because for it to be useful, everyone in your group has to be able to play. This issue alone meant Sigil was always dead on arrival, no matter how great it was as a VTT. So let's talk about that then. What is the user experience with Sigil, assuming you can run it? So Sigil opens onto this page. We have to create a table to play, and then we can start a pre-made adventure. This is the part of the VTT that made me want to kill everyone in the world, starting with myself. Loading in this starter adventure, which is only 3 maps, took 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Here is the full unbroken clip on my timeline. God forbid you try to run a D&D campaign with dozens of maps, but hey, whatever, we eventually get in, and it looks beautiful. Unreal 5 is very nice. You can pick up minis and move them around, you can cast Fireball and it makes a little animation, and you can roll dice and they roll physically on the virtual tabletop. Rolling dice always hits like a bump of crack, no matter what software you use to do it. All this stuff is great, except it's not quite right. The Firebolt spell can't target objects in Sigil, it can only target people, which is incorrect. Spells also have descriptions in Sigil, but they're not the full descriptions. It doesn't tell you the verbal, material, or somatic components necessary, for example. That's really important information for D&D. Can you cast the message cantrip if you're holding a sword and a shield? Well, Sigil doesn't tell you. But the main draw of this VTT is the ability to import characters directly from D&D Beyond. There is a free browser extension that does this exact thing for Foundry and Roll20 VTTs, by the way, but don't tell anyone. Still, it's really easy to connect Sigil and D&D Beyond. All you do is click a character model, click import character sheet, and boom. Then you get a message that says this character doesn't work. And then you go through all your characters and realize that none of them work. As far as I can tell, Sigil can't handle any content from D&D Beyond that isn't specifically from the 2024 Player's Handbook. So I guess Sigil is also unplayable for your group if even one character is running one subclass from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. I do have a character who's just a Battlemaster fighter, and by importing him, his stats appear in Sigil perfectly in sync with D&D Beyond. And when I say perfectly in sync, I actually mean wrong. His AC is wrong, and he's missing multiple items and class features. At this point, you might want to kill something, so let's look at combat in Sigil. Welcome back! World scientists have recently discovered the most badass thing in the universe, and it is, of course, dinosaurs. Studies now show exposure to dinosaurs to be 5 times more effective than medication for treating depression. And I would know because I've been playing Professor Primula's portfolio of paleontology. Even the bad thoughts can't compete with a freaking T-Rex, bitch! The portfolio of paleontology is a titanic supplement to D&D, created by real-life research scientists and paleo artists, bringing epic TTRPG content based on on real fossil animals and locations. They've got badass dinosaur subclasses, stat blocks, interactive plants, environmental hazards, weather effects, playable species, and the coolest part is the science behind everything. The book includes information on real dinosaur physiology, behavior, and ecology with academic references. It's badass D&D and a way to learn about the natural world and its history. I referenced the previous book from Paleo Games in a recent video, and so many of you went out and bought it that they reached out and booked this ad. And the portfolio of paleontology is all that dinosaur stuff turned up to the max. Grab it today using the link below and get a free epic dinosaur 3D model file thrown in. Professor Primula's portfolio of paleontology out now on Kickstarter. When the DM decides to enter combat, they click the combat button and everyone rolls initiative automatically. That's nice, but for the life of me, I couldn't work out how to change the initiative order once it was automated. That's a problem, because my character is supposed to roll initiative at advantage and it didn't. Also, the alert feat is a thing, so people need to be able to swap around in initiative. This is the problem with any automation in a virtual tabletop. If you can't manually override it, it is eventually going to break the system somehow. In combat, the rogue went first and attacked, which all worked, and then tried to use cunning action. Except there is no cunning action, which is weird because there's an attack tab. Sigil's UI has some class features like attack, but it doesn't have others. It doesn't have the dash, dodge, disengage, or hide actions or the rogue's cunning action. If it's not clear by now, by the spells being incomplete and the character imports being wrong, you just aren't using Sigil without also having your character sheet to hand. Which is a shame because I think that was kind of the point of Sigil. The point was that you didn't have to have that. To solve this stuff, I created a new character to test how tight Sigil and D&D Beyond actually are. I just made a normal monk. And to its credit, Sigil and D&D Beyond are lightning fast with their integration. I made a level 4 monk, and without even having to refresh the page in D&D Beyond, I could go to Sigil and import them. That's impressive. And it worked! Except it didn't, because once again, the AC was wrong. Sigil doesn't account for a monk's unarmored defense. Also, when I went to attack with the monk, it forced me to use strength for attack rolls, even though I was using a monk weapon. I should be able to use dexterity. Worst of all, you literally can't unarmed strike in Sigil. There is no unarmed strike option. So I guess Sigil is also unplayable if anyone in your party is a monk. At this point, you've probably already noticed something that was driving me insane. For some reason, on Sigil, most of the tokens and minis are grayed out with these weird lines. I have no idea what is going on. Sometimes a mini will be normal, and then another copy of that exact same mini right next to it will be grayed out with these strange lines. It started the moment I loaded up Sigil, and it didn't go away. And that is a real problem when the main feature of this whole VTT is that it looks nice. But that's a lot of negativity. Let's talk about some more positives. The little notes pad that the DM can access looks really handy, and as far as I can tell, every monster in the 2024 Monster Manual is here. Almost none of them have minis, they just have 2D tokens, but I think they all have their stats. I don't own the new Monster Manual, I've not got any kind of paid subscription at D&D Beyond, this is just free information in the software. Okay, back to negatives. This is a small one, but you can't place flying enemies in the air, which I think is the biggest advantage to having a 3-dimensional space. That benefit of being able to easily represent verticality in combat is the biggest problem with 2D VTTs, and this 3D VTT still doesn't let you do it. Much more seriously, although Sigil looks really nice when you just take a snapshot of it, it's actually quite annoying visually as a VTT. Take a look at this map. Can you tell me what is going on? Can you tell me how many enemies are here? Can you tell me how far they are away from each other? Did you notice this guy up here? Did you see that guy down there? I kept losing track of creatures in Sigil. Contrast that with this 2D map I threw together in less than 20 seconds. Boom! I know where the bad guys are, I know where my team is, I know where to drop a fireball. Sigil takes a lot of time, zooming in, rotating the map, checking, measuring distances, just to tell what is going on. D&D is already famously slow in combat, and anything that slows it down even more is a huge issue. Sigil actually gets in the way of playing the game. And the top-down view doesn't help. At least for me, I can't pass this at all. There's just too much clutter everywhere. But also, that clutter needs to be there because without it, it wouldn't look pretty in screenshots, and that's the whole selling point. Okay, so that's the pre-made adventure in action, but let's check out the map builder. Maybe that is the real gem. Is what I'd say if it didn't take 4 minutes and 31 seconds just to exit this software. Here's the footage from my live capture on the timeline, 4.5 minutes just to leave. Okay, we're back at the home screen, which then takes 32 seconds to load the table we just left so we can delete it. We can then load up a new table, which is just a totally empty grid we can then build things on. I am not going to mention this again, but guess how long it took to load an empty grid in Sigil? If you said 1 minute and 41 seconds, you get a hug. It's not optional. I'll find you. The map builder is where most of the glitches happen for me. Let's start with the positives. I really like that you can change the lighting with just a click. It looks really pretty. As for the building assets themselves, you get a reasonable amount to play with, but this is just a stock asset pack they imported. I mean, it might be custom, they might have built all this stuff themselves, but it looks identical to a stock asset pack you can just buy for any Unreal Engine 5 game, so honestly, it might as well have been. Still, I like all the little props you can use to populate your map, and it's really cute that they included a model of one of the developers after being made to work on this for 3 years. I immediately slapped down a bunch of pre-genned towers and then messed around for about 10 minutes to get a feel of the builder UI. First of all, yes, it's glitchy. You can see there's a ton of weird stuff going on with the lighting. I couldn't get it to stop. A lot of users reported outright crashes when using the map builder, but my glitches were all aesthetic. Secondly, I was surprised to find that the UI for this map builder was created by Satan. They brought Satan up from hell specifically to create this UI to give me brain damage. For example, there is no undo button. There is no undo button in a piece of design software from 2025. You also can't shrink or scale objects. You can't take a box and make it smaller. It has to be the size they give you. Thirdly, building anything in this map builder takes ages. I simply cannot believe any DM would have the time to build even one map per D&D session they run. Okay, so the final thing Sigil can do is character model creation. There are only 6 species you can choose, and you can't change your face or expression. You can choose between having breasts or not, but the body types you get are really limited. I am a 30-year-old British citizen. I have a God-given right to create a 300-pound mother-of-12 dwarf with more cake than a bakery if I desire. Instead, at the moment, you get to choose between thin to kind of curvy. Also, the colors are super limited. It's 2025. Why are we picking from a swatch? Just give us a hex code, please. There aren't many outfits, and all of them make your character body type completely pointless, but the ones they have actually do look quite cool, I think. Also, for some reason, about 3 minutes into the character creator, every possible character went bald, and I couldn't fix it. Possible Baldur's Gate 3 reference? Maybe? Also, a lot of the outfit add-ons are kind of lazy. They just sort of mesh the textures together. It doesn't look very good. It looks very glitchy. You can kind of see it here. If you compare this to Hero Forge, an online free mini builder, it's night and day. Honestly, they really should have just made a deal with Hero Forge to let people import their minis into Sigil. But obviously they can't do that because they need to charge microtransactions on every possible cosmetic. So, you know, greed. So that's everything on the Sigil VTT software, but the most interesting part of the launch is that there wasn't one. This software was kind of the linchpin of the entire 1D&D undermonetized push. The scheme was to create an online marketplace where existing customers could go, where new customers could be drawn in, and everyone could be smashed with microtransactions and ideally a hefty subscription fee. This game slash system slash microtransaction hellscape was going to be the main thing to take D&D to the billion-dollar brand that WotC promised Hasbro it would be. This was a huge deal to them, and it launched with nothing. This VTT cost between $20 to $35 million depending on who you ask, and they couldn't even spring for a single Todd Kenrick video. The lack of marketing around it is obvious, of course. These people aren't blind. They know Sigil is awful. It's not finished at all. It's not even ready for beta testing right now. I can only assume some random executive demanded it was released right now because it's already super late and they don't want to pay for it anymore. They sent it out unfinished. Of course, everything is broken and unplayable. And if all this sounds familiar, it is. It reminds me of the D&D TV channel. Do you remember that? It's the exact same thing. WotC do some random multi-million-dollar project to hype up Hasbro executives and investors. Nobody asks for it or really cares about it in the actual D&D community. WotC mismanage it, they treat everyone who works on it like crap, then they fire them and kill the projects because, again, nobody even wanted it in the first place. Then you give yourself a multi-million-dollar bonus and an ethics award that you created. It's Hasbro, baby! Even before they were all fired, there is no way this approach to Sigil can have been good for the mental health of the developers. It has to be embarrassing to release software in this state, get it publicly torn apart by reviews, then get publicly fired. It's not their fault at all, but it's gotta feel like crap. Okay, so let's address the elephants in the room. Even if everything was fixed with Sigil and there was no glitches and the integration all worked and it was on all platforms, it was always gonna fail. Even before it was cancelled, nobody cared about it. People just don't seem to want a 3D D&D game experience / virtual tabletop. If there's one thing that's worse than your software literally not working for 70% of potential customers, it's that 95% of potential customers literally don't care that it exists at all. Elephant in the room number 2, monetization. And I'm not going to paint this any color than what it is. Sigil did not come from a creative place. It was very clearly D&D trying to emulate the financial model of gacha games. Microtransactions out the ass with a subscription fee thrown in to sit like a cancer cell on the back of your hobby, draining money every time you play. That was the vision. I feel terrible for the development team who have lost their jobs and who definitely worked as hard as they could to make Sigil good, but I think pretty much everyone in the actual community is thankful that it failed, because the vision for Sigil's success was our financial exploitation. And you can tell just by using Sigil. It's always in your face, getting in the way of just playing the game. You have to notice the oversized dice and the minis and the clutter because you're supposed to want to pay 99 cents for a different colored oversized dice or mini or clutter. In short, Sigil can never be a great VTT because it's not made to be a great VTT. It's made to be a shell for a marketplace. There's also no plans for any third-party content to be available on Sigil, so that's another reason your group can't play. If you bought Ryoko's guide, or hey, maybe that dinosaur book from earlier, or maybe you just made up your own subclass, you can't do it on this VTT. Because then you wouldn't be giving WotC money, would you? You'd be giving it to a small third-party creator. The best thing D&D Beyond has done since WotC's acquisition is put great third-party creators on their platform, so Sigil failing to do this was a huge misstep. At this point, we should all be clear that Sigil isn't literally dead. WotC haven't decapitated it, it's more like they've blown its kneecaps off so they can watch it stagger around before eventually dying. There are still 3 people working on it. However, as I hope I have shown, this is not a finished piece of software that just needs light maintenance. Sigil is unplayable. It took a full team multiple years to get it to the state it's in now. I just can't believe a team of 3 people could get this playable even within a full year. So yeah, I do think Sigil is basically dead. I hope the remaining staff do fix some of the more egregious glitches to make it at least a little bit more playable. But honestly, I would not be surprised if the remaining devs were quietly laid off or just dipped out of the project in the next few months. Exactly like the D&D TV channel, which was ignored and then silently killed off last year. Maybe if they just focused on making the best virtual tabletop they could, forget about a game experience, forget about Unreal Engine 5, just making the best one they can, it would have been okay. But even if they did everything right, they'd just end up with another VTT. And they don't want a VTT, really. They want microtransactions and hefty subscription fees. This video has been very critical of Sigil, so please don't take that as me just crapping on the individual developers. Sigil came from a place of greed and radical misunderstanding of this game and this community. It was a vision that is literally impossible to articulate. Hopefully the employees will take a minute, they'll catch their breath, and then then they'll go on to join teams and companies that really care about them and the communities they serve. And look, I know it is gratifying to see a big, bullying, greedy corporation fail, and we should be grateful that they did fail, because their plan was to monopolize the online space and then charge the moon for it. Sigil was always going to have victims. If it had succeeded, it would have been our community. Because it's failed, it is the developers. So I guess let's not be too gleeful about this collapse. Please be kind to the people who lost their jobs and direct any grievances you have with the company towards the powerful, not the victims. Vote with your wallets, etc., etc. You are awesome, take care, TLDW, Sigil bad, Sigil dead. These videos would be impossible to make without your support on Patreon and through YouTube memberships. You can get awesome stuff, including monthly D&D expansions that I create. Please check it out if you can. Link is in description. Your support really makes the difference. Also, remember to like and subscribe, check out other videos on the channel, and yeah, that's all I got. I'll see you next time.